was moved almost to tears. He yawned, thinking about tomorrow, Friday, and Cleo. He hadn't seen her since last Friday. She'd been away for her parents' 35th wedding anniversary, and then, on Monday, she'd gone on a training course. He was missing her like crazy. Then, as he took another long swig of his whiskey, the doorbell rang. Who the hell was visiting him at midnight? The bell rang again, followed by a sharp rapping sound. Puzzled and wary, he walked into the hall. The bell rang again, more rapping, insistent. Grace lived in a quiet neighbourhood, off the beaten track for the druggies and nocturnal flotsam of Brighton and Hove, but all the same his guard was up. Over the years he'd crossed swords with, and pissed off, plenty of miscreants in this city. Any number could find good reason to settle a score with him. He yanked the door open, and found himself staring at Detective Sergeant Glenn Branson, 6'2" tall, black, bald as a meteorite, and blubbing his eyes out. Before Grace had a chance to say anything, the DS threw his arms around him, clutching him tightly, pressing his wet cheek against his friend's face.
"Roy, she's thrown me out. Oh, God, Harry's thrown me out. You gotta help me."
The blade pressed harder against her neck, cutting in, hurting. Gripping the wheel with slippery hands, she was trying desperately through her terror to think calmly. They were cresting a hill, the lights of Brighton to her left. Second exit at the roundabout. Obediently, Katie turned into Dyke Road Avenue. Large houses on either side, the orange glow of street lighting. And in her mirror, she saw his bearded face, shadowed by his baseball cap and further obscured by dark glasses. The face of a stranger, but at the same time a face and a voice that were uncomfortably familiar. "Slow down, Katie. You know where we are." In a few seconds, the sensor on the dash would automatically trigger the switch on the gates. They would open. In a few seconds, she'd be in darkness, out of sight of everyone but the man behind her.
"Oh, Jesus, help me."
Meekly, she turned left up the short tarmac driveway, lined by the huge, immaculately tended rhododendron bushes that Brian had bought. For privacy, he'd said.
"Yeah, right. Privacy."
The front of her home loomed in her headlights. The gates were closing behind her. Glenn Branson, elbows on Grace's glass coffee table, buried his face in his hands.
"I can't take this, Roy. I want Harry. I want my children. I want Sammy, Remy."
Grace poured some Courvoisier into a tumbler and thrust it into Branson's meaty hands. "Drink that." The DS took a large gulp, then set the glass down, keeping his eyes gloomily fixed on it. Grace waited patiently. Just over 2 months before, Branson had been shot during a raid which Grace had organized. The low-velocity, round-nosed .38 bullet entering the abdomen low down beneath his ribcage had, miraculously, done relatively little damage. Half an inch to the right, and it would have been a different story. Grace had felt guilty as hell about it ever since. Guilty because a man under his command had been shot. And the fact that Branson was his best friend made it worse. What made it worse still was that in the same operation, another officer, a bright young DC called Emma Jane Boutwood, had been badly injured and was still in hospital.
"Harry,"
Glenn said suddenly.
"Jesus, I don't get it."
Grace knew that his friend had been having marital problems. It went with the territory. Police officers worked insane, irregular hours. Unless you were married to someone also in the force who'd understand, you were likely to have problems. Virtually every copper did at some point. Maybe Sandy, his own long-vanished wife, did too, and had never discussed it. Had she, one July day, simply had enough, upped sticks and left? 9 years ago, last Wednesday, on his 30th birthday. The DS drank some more brandy.
"What am I going to do, Roy?"
"Tell me what's happened."
"Harry's had enough."
"Enough of what?"